In the one-year war's closing stage, Xeon tried to counter the Federation's numerical advantage by producing various high-performance machines. However, with the war turning more and more against Xeon, they were forced to hastily throw many high-performance machines onto the battlefield. One such machine was the MS-18E Kämpfer. Unlike the Gelgoog, which was designed as a general machine, the Kämpfer was an optimized assault mobile suit for inside of colonies, and first saw the light of day as the YMS-18 prototype Kämpfer. Its exact specs are shrouded in mystery, but they are most likely very close to those of the regular E-Type Kämpfer. Unlike the E-Type, which was covered from head to toe in weapons, the prototype was usually only equipped with a large prototype machine gun of unknown caliber. It is unknown if it ever saw combat during the One-Year War, but rumor has it that the Kämpfer prototype was used by space pirates after the war. According to the same rumor, this machine had the same hardpoints as a later E-Type, although it is not known if they were there from the beginning or if they were retrofitted. As mentioned before, the Kämpfer prototype was then developed into the MS-18E Kämpfer, an even more specialized machine compared to the prototype. The machine had a modular design and could be easily taken apart and reassembled without advanced equipment. The armor, while looking similar, was completely redesigned and the skirt armor removed in order to lower the weight of the machine. Its thrusters and apogee motors also received an overhaul for even higher speeds and more agility. They even allowed the Kämpfer limited flying abilities. However, because it needed to fuel all of these thrusters, the Kämpfer had a very limited operational time. Another problem with the thrusters was that the generator also needed to dedicate a lot of power to them. This meant that despite having an immense generator of 1,550 kilowatts, the only beam weaponry that the Kämpfer could use were the two hip-mounted beam sabers. This was because the use of additional beam weapons would put more strain on the generator, lowering the maximum output of the thrusters and thus lowering the overall performance. Considering that the Kämpfer was mostly meant to operate inside of colonies, and the fact that beam weapons could do enormous damage to them, this probably wasn't that big of a compromise to make for the Kämpfer's designers. Another advantage was that an explosion caused by a beam weapon destroying a mobile suit reactor could also damage the Kämpfer's thin armor. Other than the two beam sabers, the Kämpfer also had two 60mm Vulcan guns mounted on the head, and when it came to optional weapons, the Kämpfer had an entire arsenal. So much so that its fully equipped loadout earned it the nickname Hedgehog. It had two 360mm giant bazooka 2 sticking out at the back, two Sturmfausts sticking out from the legs, and finally a Jagdgewehr 192mm shotgun that could be mounted on the back skirt, which was usually supplemented by a second handheld one. A final weapon that it has been known to use was the chain mine. These mines were magnetic and could either be used as normal mines or thrown at enemy mobile suits. There is also some debate on what exactly the E in its model number stands for. The most simple theory is that it stands for experimental. While it was no longer a prototype, it could very well be that the Kämpfer was still undergoing testing, but was rushed into service because the tide was turning against Xeon. Then the second and most widely believed theory is that it stands for Einhauen Typ. In English sources, Einhauen has often been translated as meaning one strike in reference to its intended use. It quickly moves in, takes out everything with one strike, and then makes a quick getaway. However, with this spelling, Einhauen is a single verb that means to smash or to bash in, rather than two nouns with a separate meaning. And there is nothing that I could find in Japanese sources that supported the one strike translation. What you will find in Japanese sources is the Kämpfer being described as a Shugekigata, or attack type, which then translates to Einhauen Typ. While this isn't necessarily incorrect, it is a very liberal translation. Einschlagen, a similar word with a broader meaning that is also used more often, would probably be better than Einhauen. But let's leave the semantics behind and have a look at another development of the Kämpfer, the MS-18F. Unlike the other two units, the F-Type was made to handle beam weapons. Supposedly, it used a modified version of the Gelgoog Jaeger's beam machine gun, but because almost no records of this machine survived, this is all that we currently know. At this moment, it's not even known if the F-Type existed at all, or if it was simply a design plan that couldn't be implemented before the war ended. Finally, a cannon variant of the Kämpfer is also rumored to have been developed. Its outward appearance is very similar to the E-Type, with the most obvious differences being the pointy shoulders, the elbow guards, and then its main weapon, a cannon of unknown caliber that is mounted on the left shoulder. At the moment, no records of this machine fighting in combat or even being built exist. And that is all for the in-universe explanation. But before I end the video, I quickly want to elaborate on this Kämpfer canon with some real-life information. Apparently, in the original concepts for the Blue Destiny games, the player would have had to fight Marion Welch and her custom red Kämpfer as a boss. But this plan was scrapped early on in development, so all that remains is the line art of this custom Kämpfer, which wasn't even referred to as a Kämpfer, but rather Marion's mobile suit. And if you want to know what did happen to Marion, you can check out my video on the exam system. And that is all for this video on the development history of the Kämpfer. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe for more similar content. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all next time.